every other system that I know of that utilizes or that has a model for understanding the causal regions, every one of them describes these causal regions in terms of beings which are separate from oneself. And I'm not offering that to you. I'm not offering that. The reason is that nothing is outside yourself. It's all the self. It's all the self. It's all yourself. What you see, what we extract out of our little, each person has their subjective reality, right? It's like a little slice of absolute truth. Our little subjective truths are a little slice of absolute truth. And everything that we find in that slice is a reflection of oneself. If you find something nasty, just to say, because it's important to know what you do if you find something nasty, understand that anything that creates a reaction in you of, ooh, like recoiling or angry or fearful or uncomfortable, is an indication that there is a potential for some wonderful transformation right there on that spot. And what we want to do in energy healing is we want to catch those spots where there's kind of a pressure, this pressure that's created by the inconsistent alignment of personal subjective truth with absolute truth. Okay, so there's absolute truth and there's nothing we can do about that. That just is what it is. And God bless that. And ideally, our personal subjective truth is perfectly aligned with absolute truth. But because we're functioning from the perspective of the human nervous system and the human senses of perception, everything processed through the human brain, which is wired just so, what happens is subjective truth almost always ends up being a little bit incomplete in relationship to absolute truth. Always. Always. So those spots where the incompletion, like the forefront, the point of most lively incompletion, will become a point of pressure inside the being. If we catch the pressure early, if we watch for the pressure, we want to evolve the sensibility, the sense of perception, the fine sensitivity to identify those spots where that pressure is being created. At any given moment, it's always going to be created somewhere. At any given moment, our subjective truth will be slightly having the potential to expand more into absolute truth. So we want to find those spots and we want to leverage the potential transformation, the transformation potential in those spots before it becomes a problem. If we wait and we ignore it, then the pressure builds up and the pressure eventually erupts at the surface as imbalance or incompletion or some situation which is difficult. This is about using energy healing in a practical manner. So I'm focusing my awareness right now to identify the energy signature of those edges, where personal subjective truth has yet to reach the potential of absolute truth. And again, I'm feeling there's something that sits at the solar plexus area. There's some feeling of, oh, I was wrong. The feeling, I made a mistake. So the feeling of that I was wrong and I made a mistake, that is like a little discordant feeling that's clustered around that spot. When discordant feelings cluster around the spot, they stop awareness from penetrating because they're uncomfortable. Discordant feelings are uncomfortable, so they don't want to go there and look at that. But discordant feelings are actually the manifestation of the energy required to promote the change. When something, it's like these lovely rocks over here, they tend to stay put. Unless something big comes along and pushes them, right? So it's the same for us, that in general, the inner organization of self tends to stay about the same unless something comes to push it. And those discordant feelings are full of energy. They're full of force, life force, life force, life force. And so when I say there's an energy signature for that area of that bridge or that connection between personal subjective truth and absolute truth, I'm really describing a causal structure. Yesterday, I talked a little bit about causal structures in terms of forms that seem human-ish, humanoid, you know, like ascended masters and angels and, you know, beings, the gods. We talked about Ganesh, we talked about Lord Kalabhairava, we talked about different forms like that, but there are many forms. There are many forms in the causal field that are less humanesque. So I thought it, or humanoid or something less human-ish. And I thought it would be really important that we touch on those as well. And you guys can see we're just skimming the surface here. There's so much information. So other types of causal forms include regions. They include structures that are like energy signatures of specific things, such as the energy signature that resides at the point of that junction point between personal subjective truth and absolute truth. There's an energy signature, and that energy signature is an archetypal form. It's something that's very similarly experienced from one physiology to the next. So by identifying it in one's own self, it's also, and shining the light, we bend, let's see, we bend the astral field like this so that intelligence from being is coming up, it's hitting that and it's bending back in toward the causal field and taking a look at that particular energy signature, which sits in that junction between subjective and absolute truth. And I couldn't wait, you guys. I was waiting for like the last 2 or 3 weeks when I came across this piece of information to be with you now and to share it with you now, because it's our collective that has the ability to shine a brightness of light, a power of light into these areas, far more intense and far more expansive and broad-based than anything Dorothy shines in on her own. I love you guys. This is a powerful thing we do together. This junction point between subjective and objective truth is our key. It's like a golden key to absolute wisdom and absolute knowledge and access to that pillar of Dharma, right? Truth is one of the great pillars of Dharma, our access to embodying Dharma at every single point of our being. So it's not just like the person's going down the street thinking, well, I want to be in my Dharma, but it's like every cell, every atom, every nuance of self is soaking in that truth, so that it's not like I want to be in my Dharma, it's just I am Dharma. Just that download for everyone. I am in my Dharma. You are in your Dharma. We are in our Dharma. Solid. Dharma. Dharma is also Dharma, and truth, pure truth is also. These are causal body forms. The changes that I'm seeing in everyone's physiology are running between the heart area and the gut area, right through that solar plexus chakra, which is the one that we're working with primarily today. I wouldn't have guessed. I don't even attempt to guess anymore. Y'all are structuring the whole thing, and I am grateful. I am grateful. And the reverent love can move from the heart area down into the gut area and through the whole torso, where we process so much information, so many facts and points of expression of being in the relative are processed down in the gut area, in the stomach area. I'm still seeing lodged in a lot of people's physiologies something there in the solar plexus area, and I feel that it is an energy that tends to activate the sympathetic nervous system. It's definitely a kind of really intense energy that feels kind of like yes, like fear, like a little bit like those butterflies in the stomach, you know, if you have a heavy crush, or just a very kind of aggravated, kind of an anxious energy. You know, fear is part of it, anxiousness is part of it. Dread is in there. So, and the dread, okay, is connected to sinister force, which is a term, it's a pretty heavy term, but that's a term that I used to use a long time ago, to describe an unhealthy relationship between the individuality of people and the exploitative energies that reside in the web of life, that reside in the field around us. And I'm sure those exploitative energies have roots in the causal field as well. I suppose as humans, it is our responsibility to not overlook those energies, because they are part of that landscape, and we will not be able to rise into our power and our potential as beings of light without also mastering the relationship with those energies. And it doesn't mean all the traditional ways it's been done in the past, because those don't work. Those, humanity over thousands of years has proven that the ways that these energies have been handled in the past simply don't work. They will cause self-destruction. So it has to be a new approach. It has to be a solid approach that is upheld by the potential of pure being to promote absolutely the highest and best evolution out of every situation. This is so important. This is so important. Being upholds our relationship with every structure in creation to integrate with highest evolution, progress, and not just personal progress, but progress that takes place at every level of creation. It has to be good for us. It has to be good for everybody else. It has to be good from the subtle levels of creation. It has to be good at the gross levels of creation. It doesn't matter if the energy, if we perceive through our slice of subjective reality that some energy is kind of dense or dark, or it creates a kind of a fear reaction in the self. We will interact with energies like that. Like, that's part of human life, man. We live in a world of boundaries, and boundaries will create these reactions. But we handle ourselves in a way which disallows those boundaries to have a deleterious effect. We handle consciousness in such a way that even those energies promote evolution. They promote all blessings, all good, all benefit to everyone, without a shadow, without a question, without any side effects. You guys are powerful. I was not expecting to go here in today's session. I was not expecting that. But it shows not only the power of our group, but also the purity of intention. So thank you all for holding fast to that value of purity. What's happening right now at the causal level is that junction between subjective truth and absolute truth has been activated and enlivened, and it's supporting an expansion of subjective truth. And as that expansion occurs, it is infused with purity, innocence. Absolutely the most amazing, concise alignment with the intention of the entire creation to evolve. So it's not just personal evolutionary intention, but it's cosmic evolutionary intention. And even past that, even because you can get bigger and bigger, you can get bigger and bigger groups, or you could say organized collectives that have intention, right? When we're talking about subjective truth and objective truth, you can get, that's why sometimes people move together as a collective with an intention, with the idea that, well, maybe if we all agree on this one thing, that will make it right. Like, not to bring in too dark of an example, but, like maybe a bunch of people that are in a bar and they're all agreeing that drinking alcohol is just the best thing ever, right? And they all agree, like not a single person in the bar disagrees. So they can all feel like, yeah, it really is the best thing ever. But that doesn't make it the best thing ever, right? Because the absolute truth is bigger than that. And so what's happening, I'm just bringing that as an example, but what's happening here as we're aligning with cosmic intention for evolution is I'm seeing these cycles and these circles, bigger and bigger and bigger circles of cosmic intention for evolution spiraling out. And as they spiral out at higher and higher levels, the higher they go, the closer that intention comes to absolute intention for highest evolution. And so our healing, as we were putting our attention on the junction between subjective truth and absolute truth, has now enlivened that junction, not only at a personal level for each of us and at a collective level for our whole healing webinar, but it's spiraled out and it's enlivened that connection all the way out to the cosmic regions of creation to find that point where it's no longer a junction, where the union is all that exists. And what I'm seeing is it's like infinity. When it gets to infinity, when it spirals out to infinity, it's like the Fibonacci series trying to reach the golden ratio, right? With each pair of numbers, the ratio between those numbers gets closer to the golden ratio, but it goes to infinity, it goes to infinity, it goes to infinity, and it getting ever closer to that form.